have a leader like Representative Smith and his commitment to fight for stronger gun laws at the federal level and unflinching support of the gun measures that we're putting forward here at the local level. Thank you so much, Senator Smith. Unfortunately, we have too few leaders like Congressman Smith. That's why, despite the work of our legislative champions, neither our federal or state legislature has been able to pass the kind of comprehensive gun laws that all of you in this room and voters across Washington state are demanding. We need to keep our schools and communities safe. Yes. And this year we have the opportunity to do that. Voters in Washington not only have the chance to support gun responsibility candidates, but we also have the opportunity to pass Initiative 1639, the most comprehensive gun violence prevention initiative to be put forward in Washington state's history. And now I am proud to introduce someone who has helped make this initiative possible from the day one, the citizen sponsor of Initiative 1639, Paul Kramer.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Paul Kramer. I'm the citizen sponsor for Initiative 1639, Safe Schools, Safe Communities. I'm honored to share the stage today with so many great leaders of the gun violence prevention movement here in our state and across the country. And I'm proud to be fighting alongside them to pass Initiative 1639. Gabby and Mark, thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm sponsoring and supporting Initiative 1639 because 2 years ago, my then 18-year-old son was shot in the back by a gunman with an AR-15 type semi-automatic assault rifle at a gathering of friends in a private loving home in Mukilteo. He spent 2.5 weeks in the hospital recovering, but Will was lucky enough to survive. 3 of his close friends were not. I shared the extreme grief of their parents at the loss of their children. No family should have to experience the tragedy of losing a child to a senseless act of gun violence. But tragedies like this are far too common. In Washington state, a person is killed with a gun every 14 hours. Nationwide, someone dies as a result of a gunshot every 15 minutes. But it doesn't have to be this way. We know it is a statistical fact. Stronger gun laws help prevent gun violence. And this year in Washington, we have the opportunity to pass Initiative 1639, the most comprehensive gun violence prevention measure ever proposed in this state. Initiative 1639 will make sure there are safeguards in place every step of the way to ensure that people are using their guns safely and to prevent guns from falling into dangerous hands. Throughout the campaign, I have been inspired by the energy and passion of voters from all across the state who are ready for action to keep our schools and communities safe from gun violence. The will of the people of this state is becoming clear. Unfortunately, the gun lobby is aggressively spreading misinformation about the campaign. Over the past few months, I've heard many of their falsehoods firsthand. They claim that Initiative 1639 takes away the Second Amendment rights of 18 to 20-year-olds, ignoring the fact that this population is already prohibited from purchasing handguns, and the fact that these young people will still be able to purchase many common types of long guns. The gun lobby also argues that Initiative 1639 will make criminals out of responsible gun owners whose weapons are stolen and used in a crime. But the initiative was very carefully written to exempt victims of break-ins and gun thefts and to protect law-abiding gun owners, as long as they report their stolen gun. The opposition even says that gun buyers would be forced to waive medical privacy rights to purchase a semi-automatic assault rifle, when all the measure does is ensure that local mental health agencies can inform law enforcement if potential gun buyers are prohibited from possessing a firearm. More than anything, the gun lobby claims that Initiative 1639 won't make our state any safer. This is the worst distortion of all. The gunman who shot my son was 19 years old. He bought the AR-15 he used to shoot my son at Cabela's just a few days prior to the shooting. He was reading the gun's instruction manual as he sat in his car outside the home where my son and his friends had gathered before he went into the house and opened fire, and used it to kill 3 of my son's close friends and seriously injure my son. If Initiative 1639 had been in place then, he would not have been able to purchase that semi-automatic assault rifle. My son likely would have been spared unimaginable pain and grief, and Anna, Jake, and Jordan might still be here today. Ballots are going out soon, and Washingtonians will be voting on Initiative 1639. I hope you'll join me in voting yes, and in doing whatever it takes over the next 2.5 weeks to make sure that we get out the vote and pass Initiative 1639. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paul. Your willingness to continue sharing your story is really meaningful, and thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Stephen Paolini. He is Yes on 1639's campaign manager, and he's going to talk with us a little bit more about our historic campaign this year.
Well, thank you so much, Renee, and thank you, Paul. You are the heart and soul of this campaign and a constant inspiration to all of us, I know. Well, my name is Stephen Paolini. I am the campaign manager for Yes on Initiative 1639, Safe Schools and Safe Communities. I am so glad to be here this morning in the room with so many passionate activists and champions of gun violence across the country. Initiative 1639 is truly historic. And in addition to being the most comprehensive gun violence prevention measure ever put forward in the state of Washington, we are also the only gun violence prevention initiative in the country. And we have an opportunity this year to do something that no other state gets to have, which is we get to vote yes or no on preventing gun violence in our schools and our communities this year. Initiative 1639 will strengthen our gun laws and make sure that at every step along the process, there are safeguards in place to make sure that folks are using their guns safely and that guns don't fall into dangerous hands. Right now in our state, it is easier to purchase a semi-automatic assault rifle than it is to purchase a handgun. That is absurd. Initiative 1639 will update the rules for purchasing semi-automatic assault rifles to match existing Washington law for handguns. It will do so by raising the age to purchase a semi-automatic assault rifle from 18 to 21 and requiring an enhanced background check that looks at the most up-to-date local law enforcement records. Initiative 1639 will also require a safety training course and a 10-day waiting period for purchasers of semi-automatic assault rifles. It will incentivize secure storage by potentially holding gun owners accountable if a child or another prohibited person gains access to an unsafely stored firearm and uses it to cause serious harm. These reasonable common sense measures are based on some of the most effective gun laws all across this country. They will help save lives in our state as they have done so in other states. What I want folks to remember as we go forward in the next 19 days until Election Day is that we have already made history together. In just 25 days, the quickest effort in the history of the state of Washington, we collected over 378,000 signatures. Everyone around this room worked tirelessly and exhibited a kind of Herculean effort to get this measure on the ballot. And so now, looking forward on the next 19 days until November 6th, when all of us get a chance to vote on this, we have a chance to again make history. And what I like to tell volunteers is this is an opportunity to take advantage of something that we have built together. We put this initiative on the ballot faster than anyone thought possible, collected some of the highest signature gathering efforts in the history of the state of Washington. And all that has given us is an opportunity to go knock on doors, to make phone calls, to write postcards, to talk to voters about a law that we all know will save lives. We have fought so hard just to have a state in the country that gets that opportunity. So now, as ballots drop today and over the next couple of days, whatever our commitment was, let's redouble it. Let's knock on twice as many doors. Let's make twice as many phone calls. Let's write twice as many postcards. We have this opportunity, and we are so lucky that folks like Paul Kramer and Renee and Gabby and Adam have led this effort to make this opportunity possible, and we must honor it. I hope that all of you, and I know that all of you, will join us in making this effort possible to pass Initiative 1639. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Stephen's been doing an amazing job leading this campaign. So now it is my honor to introduce, again, someone who needs no introduction, Captain Mark Kelly, who's going to speak with us for a few minutes about their inspirational story and their amazing work in this movement. We could not be more honored to have you here today. Mark.
Thank you, everybody. Great to be here in the state of Washington. I used to be a resident of Washington a long time ago. 1987 to 1989, I was stationed on Whidbey Island, flying an airplane called the A6 Intruder. It's where I learned how to be a real pilot in the Navy, and I used to fly through these mountains here all the time, even at night, which was a little scary, especially in the middle of winter when it's cloudy and rainy and icy, and you got to fly through the mountains of western Washington. But I loved living here. Gabby and I love coming back here to Washington, and we do rather frequently for a couple of reasons. We've got good friends like Adam and Sarah here in the state of Washington. But Washington is also a place where there are leaders on the issue that we work on, and that's the issue of gun violence across our country. Gabby was injured in January of 2011, so that's coming up on 8 years ago. In January will be the 8th year since she was shot, and 17 of her constituents and employees were also shot. 6 of them died. All happened in about 15 seconds, where a young guy showed up with a high-capacity magazine, a 33-round magazine for a handgun, something that probably should not exist, or at least be really, really hard to get. And she was seriously injured, but it was after the shootings at the movie theater in Aurora, followed shortly thereafter by the shooting at the Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut, that got us seriously thinking about how do we fix this problem. And we realized that there's a powerful corporate interest out there, the gun lobby, that wants weak gun laws. And those weak gun laws do not keep us safe from gun violence. In the state of, the safest state to live in right now happens to be Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, about 3 people per 100,000 per year die from a gunshot wound. In your state of Washington, that number is 9, 300% higher. In the worst state, it's over 20. Actually, the worst states, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, that number isn't 3 or 9, it's 20. You know what those 3 states have in common? They have the weakest laws. So what you're doing here through ballot initiative, because unfortunately at this point, not yet, but eventually you'll be able to get this stuff through the legislature, but right now you can't, and you have to do this through ballot initiative. You're becoming leaders on this. And don't think that this only affects the state of Washington, because even that it only becomes the law in Washington, it has an impact in other places. When advocates and activists in other states see the success here with 1639 and the ballot initiatives before it, it encourages them to go out and try to do the same thing. And that has happened consistently. So when 1639 passes, I would not be surprised that if in 2020 you see a ballot initiative similar to this in another state. So I want to congratulate all of you for being leaders on this issue, not only here, but essentially across our entire nation. So congratulations, guys. And Gabby and I are here to announce our endorsement for 1639. Now we heard recently that the gun lobby has started spending some money to try to defeat this ballot initiative. They don't like stronger gun laws. In my opinion, the primary reason is because it reduces the number of gun sales. And that's what this will do. I mean, it's pretty obvious that if you're somebody under the age of 21, you're not going to be buying an assault weapon legally anymore, which is a good thing. Protects people, especially children, from gun violence. So we are so excited about it. That's why, it's one of the reasons why we're here. I'll get to the other reason in a second. But Gabby and I give our full endorsement. We are here with you for, not physically, but we're here with you for the next 19 days up into the election. If you see, let me give you a little bit of advice. If you see polling on this, don't ever believe this polling, especially if it shows you're ahead on something. I remember so many times when Gabby was running in her last election, we thought her pollster said she was ahead by 10 points, and she won by 1.5. I mean, don't believe those polls. We were reminded of that in 2016. Every vote counts. The ballots are in the mail. You got to turn them in. You got to make all those phone calls. You got to knock on more doors. That's what works. The direct contact with the voter, more than anything else, that is what matters. So keep doing that. And if you do that, I'm pretty sure we're going to get this thing across the finish line. Now, Gabby is the one that has me get out here every day and do this work. Gabby's been a public servant for probably the last 25 years or so. She served in Congress with Adam for 3 terms. She was injured about 5 days after being sworn into her 3rd term in Congress. But she doesn't give up, no matter what. And she's an incredible fighter, and she has a brief message for all of you. Gabby Giffords, everybody.
Scary times. Racism, sexism, lies, violence. It's time to stand up for what's right. It's time for courage. We must do something. We must stop gun violence. Protect our children, our future. Let them lead the way. Make our country a safer place, a better place. Do you have the courage to fight? Stand with me. Vote. Vote, vote. On election day, your voice matters. Please join your voice with mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you. So Gabby Gabby served in Congress with Adam Smith for 3 terms. Well, Gabby didn't finish her 3rd term. She had to resign after being injured. Gabby served on the Armed Services Committee with Adam. And Gabby recognized Adam as one of the leaders among the Democrats in the House of Representatives. And I saw I didn't really know Adam very well, but I had the opportunity, sometimes as a spouse, you can go on a congressional delegation with your spouse. I was an astronaut at NASA at the time. I had an opportunity to go to Africa, and I saw Adam in action in the Democratic Republic of Congo when he was incredibly outspoken to a group of leaders in a refugee camp, held them accountable in a way I had not quite expected and seen before. And I got to tell you, I was incredibly impressed with his leadership. And we need leadership in Congress now more than ever, and we need accountability. And Adam, as a leader in armed services, he is going to provide that leadership, not only in that committee, but in the House of Representatives, and leadership in Washington that we really, really need. So Gabby and I are here to support Adam in his re-election to Congress. He is one of probably Gabby's best friend in Congress while she served, and he's certainly going to be the next representative here in Washington 9, Adam Smith.
Mark and Gabby, obviously, for being here and for their leadership, and I appreciate that story from Mark, but a lot of that courage came from Gabby. Gabby is one of those people who makes you want to be a better person, and makes you a better person, and makes you believe. Her enthusiasm and her courage as a member of Congress was great even then, and obviously, since Tucson, it's truly remarkable. You are an inspiration to so many people and a very, very good friend. So thank you. We still miss you in Congress, and I still think about you and wish you were there. But the leadership you're showing across the country is inspirational. So thank you very much for doing that. I want to thank Moms Demand Action. I want to thank all of you out here. Because in these difficult times on a number of issues, I think there is a lot of despair amongst my progressive liberal democratic constituency when you look at what's going on in Congress. What do we do? How do we change this? Well, let me tell you, I first started in getting involved in politics in the 80s and ran for office in 1990 in South King County. And I knocked on, I didn't have a job, I had a lot of free time. I knocked on 25,000 doors, let's put it that way. And I would guess that of those 25,000 doors, I don't know, 300 or 400 people asked me about guns. And of those 300 or 400 people who asked me about guns, not a single solitary one of them was in favor of gun control. If they were focused on the issue, it's because they were pro-gun and NRA. We were silent on the issue. And frankly, back in my time in the state legislature, and even early on, I didn't have the best record on this issue and didn't focus on it as much as I would have, because when I went to doors, people were talking to me about healthcare and education and jobs and a whole bunch of other issues. You all out there have changed that. And I saw it start to change. You made this an issue and made people aware of it. And I guess the best example of this is in this state, and a lot of people forget this, but we had an initiative back, I think it was 2002, it was 15, 16 years ago anyway, that would have simply created common sense background checks in the state. That initiative lost, and it lost over 2-1. That exact same initiative, and again, I'm going to get my years wrong, I think it was 2 years ago, you all worked to get it on the ballot. It passed by better than 2-1. That is what grassroots activism does. So please give yourselves a round of applause. You are driving change, and I'm happy to help, and I'm as committed to this issue as any other now. Seeing the impact it has, seeing what everyone has done. And quite frankly, it always happens to somebody else, right? Now, I remember where I was when someone sent me a text. Did you see that there was a shooting in Tucson? I was getting my hair cut with my family. I'm like, okay, wait. And then it's like, that's all who it was. And it has an impact on you that you just cannot describe. And it shouldn't happen to anyone. My own children, they're teenagers. One of them's out of high school now, in college. God. Anyways, my wife would say, if we're getting the other one out of the house, we're shooting for the over-under at about 30. Trying to set our expectations at the right point. But, they told me, and they've told me for years when they go to school, they dread hearing the fire alarm because they don't know if it means that someone's going to start shooting at them when they walk out that door. That's the experience that all of our children have going to schools. And that should not be. And what you are doing is slowly, inevitably working to change that. And that's the last point I want to make. In public policy, it's really frustrating because you see something that is so wrong and you're like, well, we have to fix that. And we have to fix it tomorrow. And it never happens that way. Because politics and public policy is about patience and persistence and progress. So be patient, be persistent, and make progress. The initiative we passed a couple of years ago was a huge step. This will be a huge step. Mark is right. You will see this copied all across the country if we are successful. So the work you are doing is making a difference. If I can help in any way, don't hesitate to ask, but make no mistake about it. You are the ones who are making this happen. So thank you for your leadership. And again, I want to thank Mark and Gabby for coming up to support this initiative, and on a more personal level for their just incredible friendship throughout the time that I've been privileged to know them. So I thank them for being here, and again, I thank you for your tremendous leadership on this issue.
Thank you so much, Representative Smith. So we have 19 days left. Who's counting? All of us. And we have a job to do. We have a job to help flip Congress at the federal level. And in Washington State, we have 3 seats that are open for that. And while everyone here that lives in the 9th, I'm sure, is voting for Representative Smith, we have the 6th, and we have the 3rd, and we have the 8th. And for those of you that do not live in those districts, if you know people that live in them, call. Make sure that they're voting for not just a Democrat, but a gun responsibility champion, because that is what we need in Congress. And in Washington State, at the state level, we have the opportunity to make our state legislature forget about Democrat, Republican, forget about blue, red. What we have the opportunity to do is make our state legislature a gun responsibility legislature. And we can do that this year. We've not been able to do that in the past, but we can this year. So vote yes on 1639, and make sure you know how your representatives and senators stand on gun violence prevention, and make it your voting issue. We want to see an orange wave this year, and we believe that we can. So again, thank you everyone so much for being here. Thank you, Gabby and Mark. Thank you again, Congressman. And let's go get this done.